Atheism, far from threatening the future survival of freedom or being irreconcilable with it, is compatible with individual liberty, free markets, and limited government. Moreover, atheism reinforces liberty by providing for the metaphysical realm what liberty provides for the political: the freedom of the individual from subjugation to the dictates of an arbitrary authority. Here, some of the principal arguments for the mutually reinforcing status of atheism and liberty shall be examined. What is atheism? Atheism is not by itself a positive worldview. It is rather the non-belief in any god or gods, i.e., in any entity which has powers beyond those that are feasible within the parameters of the laws of nature, or which controls the world, the universe, or its laws. Atheists reject the existence of both the earlier polytheistic gods, who had more limited and finite powers, and the Abrahamic God, which is defined as simultaneously omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent. A more thorough explication of what atheism actually is can be found in my essay, Atheism, Facts, and Myths. The purpose of the present series is more specific, to illustrate the complementarity of atheism and liberty. What is liberty? Liberty is the ability of the individual to act according to his own choices and desires in living his life, provided that he respects a similar prerogative in all other innocent human beings. The philosophy of liberty is grounded in the individual having inalienable natural rights to life, property, health, and the taking of any non-coercive action needed to pursue and sustain happiness. These rights are not conditional upon the wishes of any entity, and cannot be legitimately taken away or infringed on for any reason. As natural rights, they exist from the moment an individual comes to be. In the political realm, the liberty of each individual only requires the lack of coercive interference with that individual's life, beliefs, choices, and actions. The purpose of government is therefore solely to prevent harm to any individual under its jurisdiction, and to resolve any disputes that arise regarding what constitutes such harm. The first argument for the compatibility of atheism and liberty is that both provide freedom from arbitrary power. Virtually all theistic religions dictate the individual's subordination to some higher entity, a god or gods which at the very least set up the laws of nature and the laws of morality and require men to obey them. This is similar in kind to the individual's political subordination to some so-called higher entity, a king, a dictator, a central planning committee, or a popularly elected president and representatives who claim some special warrant for restricting and controlling the individual's life. That warrant could be the divine right of kings, or the will of the people, expressed as the vote of 51% of those who happen to cast a ballot, or as the governing official's interpretation of what the people want. Or this warrant could simply be a case of might making right. A strong man with sufficient guns and enforcers can dictate his will upon others without requiring others to accept his legitimacy on an intellectual level. The manner of obedience theistic religions expect of their followers is identical in kind to the special status arguments that are so often used to justify unconditional obedience to kings, dictators, and democratically elected populists. In Christian, and more generally in Abrahamic circles, an argument is often invoked that an action that is God's will is by definition good, and that no action can be good unless it is God's will. This has numerous perverse consequences, including the status of the Old Testament God's commands to commit genocide against entire populations, and to inflict draconian punishments against non-transgressions as moral, while the actions of an atheist who does not harm a single individual and brings about nothing but increased prosperity and peace through his actions are immoral. Statist regimes and religions are identical in justifying their contents and structures by fiat. The mere pronouncement of some entity, or the mere origin of an idea or action from that entity, by definition makes the pronouncement, idea, or action good. By contrast, the case for liberty posits that natural rights are inherent in the individual and are not given by any outside entity, be it natural or supernatural. Within the case for liberty, then, the justice or injustice of a political arrangement is determined by whether that political arrangement favorably relates to what the individual already is, i.e., defends that individual's pre-existing natural rights. Both statism and theism make the error of supposing that rights and goodness, respectively, must come from an external source. The best case for liberty suggests that rights need not come from, and indeed the question of the source of rights, while syntactically correct, may be as nonsensical as the question, what is the meaning of life, or what is the chairness of green? But even if rights do not come from an external source, but are inherent in the individual, we must still answer the question of why this is the case. An atheist can answer this question by simply examining the nature of morality. Just as the best case for liberty does not assume rights by fiat from some higher authority, be it a god or a government, neither does the atheist assume morality by fiat from some supernatural higher authority. Rather, an atheist who does not adhere to any validations by fiat looks for some rational justification for why certain actions are moral and others are immoral. An atheist advocate of liberty therefore believes that a rational justification is required for both morality and liberty. The fiat pronouncement of any entity, real or imagined, natural or supernatural, will not suffice. To draw the connection between atheism and liberty, we begin with the basic question of morality, the question of what ought the individual to do. This is the basic inquiry underlying all of ethics. We note that this question itself does not exist in a vacuum. It is grounded in certain necessary prerequisites. For instance, it requires the existence of the individual and the possibility of continued individual action. Moreover, it requires the individual to have some faculty of effectively and reliably deciding what he ought to do. The very ability to ask the basic question of morality requires 1. A living individual, 2. A physical body by which the individual can engage in actions, and 3. A sensory apparatus, a mind, and a faculty of reason, also physically grounded according to most atheists, which the individual must employ to perceive reality and make choices about what he should do. If any of these prerequisites is undermined, morality is impossible, and the basic question of morality no longer makes sense, and indeed can no longer even be asked in any meaningful way. Any logical system is founded on prerequisites, or axioms, from which subsequent propositions within that system can be derived. But a system cannot be used to undermine or contradict its own axioms, because this would then invalidate the system. It would enable one to prove any conceivable statement and its negation within the system, and it would produce the logically impossible status of simultaneous A and non-A among any and all existence addressed by the system. Therefore, any system must not undermine the prerequisites of morality, the continuation of the individual's life, physical body, and sensory and rational faculties. Any system of morality which undermines these prerequisites is self-contradictory and therefore untenable. The question, why is the preservation of each individual's life good and moral, can be answered as follows. Morality presupposes the value of preserving each individual's life and the holding of such preservation as the most important value, because without it, morality itself cannot exist.